Hey guys, it's Malcolm here once again, and as the title of the video alludes to, I have joined the dozens and thousands of haters of Stormburst to basically say it's really not that great. I did give it a fair shot. I feel I've been playing it for roughly 30 hours now, maybe even 40 actually. I think 40 hours for the total of this character, hit level 89, which is more than I'd give most characters worth of time, because truth be told, it's pretty damn fun to map with. Now that was with cast while channeling ball lightning you just saw. This is me trying it without cast while channeling, and it just feels a little lackluster. It does force you to stand still. You have to wait till the explosions go off, making you fairly susceptible, and ultimately it doesn't clear that well either. Whereas with ball lightning, the clear's amazing, and it feels pretty damn good, and it's more or less safe. You do still have to wait a bit for the channel to start, but more often than not, you get your channel off and then heal straight to full and do damage to everything around you, so it does feel good. There are a few times that you'll get caught out and get hit by something before you start your channel, and that feels pretty damn awful. And then there's the single target issue. Now this is just a tier 6, and at this point in my character it should be at a face roll tier 6, and it more or less does, but you can see it's pretty fucking dangerous to use with slow approach because you essentially become a melee character while also having to stand still to do your damage and wait for that damage to come in. And then this is what the cast while channeling setup looks like versus a tier 8 boss. Also not too bad. But then we come across a tier 11 boss. This is just the Wastelands Vol, and as you know, most of the bosses have got buffed life, and this one's no exception. And with cast while channeling ball lightning, it's pretty dangerous to stand still to try and do my damage, and also the DPS isn't great, as you can see. I go back to my non-cast while channeling setup, which is supposed to be my dedicated single target with slower proj, and it's really dangerous at that point, and the damage isn't too much more impressive. It doesn't really steamroll any sort of bosses, and this is still only tier 11, so it's only going to get fucking worse as things go on. So the damage just didn't feel adequate for what you put yourself through to use it. And then there's this guy here, the key, or now port boss, with a couple of really insane mods. This one hits super hard because it's got a lot of damage mods. I've also got temp chains, and I think it's got more monster life and a bit of crit reduction on there as well, so my damage isn't great, but it's a realistic map that you expect to run. And the boss was an absolute fucking nightmare. This was the hardest content I've faced thus far. I had to reset flasks a lot of times. He just about one-shots me, and he has an insane amount of life at this point. It just didn't feel good to put my character and myself through this and have to try and clear this boss or bosses like him at this stage of the game. So I just felt I had to end up running around a bit too much. Maybe I think, well, quite likely my character isn't tanky enough because it is still using a tabula instead of, let's say, a 6-link carcass jack. I don't feel like I'm leeching that much because Warlord's Mark kind of sucks, especially against bosses, so maybe a Vinctars would help that, but I wouldn't be able to sustain a Vinctars during a long boss fight, and it certainly would be a longer boss fight. So once we get to tier 10 and plus, this really stopped feeling particularly good, but you can see during the lower tier maps, like let's say it's Ziri at this point, it feels pretty damn amazing, and it performs really well. So from anything from the start of the skill up to about tier 10, the skill doesn't feel too bad, and I think it's justifiable in playing, and it's worth playing even if you feel like playing something lightning based and a caster. It definitely doesn't feel terrible, but its endgame potential to me at this stage feels somewhat limited, without maybe more insane gear or more insane currency spent, because my character is still pretty feeble. I just don't really see too many more improvements I'm going to make without a more substantial investment, and that makes me kind of want to stop playing the character and run out of steam. So I'll show you guys real quick what I ended up testing out and what single target I thought felt best, and maybe you can try some out yourself. So what I ended up mapping with most of the time was this setup here. We had Stormburst attached to GMP, added lightning, controlled destruction or crit strikes or even hypothermia all were pretty similar in performance, and then ball lightning and cast while channeling. Now my actual single target setup that's the absolute best I think for damage purely was then replacing ball lightning and castle channeling with slow approach and conk effect. Now I feel like this was the highest single target I achieved, but it was kind of dangerous and it still didn't feel amazing. It really didn't clear things that much faster, so quite often I wouldn't even do it, and it was kind of tedious having to swap 2 gems around instead of just 1, or even none at all, while having to map at your usual pace. A compromise I came to quite a lot of the time was to stick with ball lightning and cast while channeling, and for single target simply swap out GMP and add in slow approach. So that means that the ball lightning is traveling slower, which does more damage, and also the storm burst is traveling slower, so that the overlaps are better, but it doesn't have the GMP. So ultimately this was pretty damn comparable to the ultimate storm burst single target, but a little bit worse. It was just a nice compromise for only having to swap 1 gem around, and likewise it's a green for a green if you're doing a non-tabular based setup. So this did work and it was okay, but it certainly wasn't anything special. Just like the rest of the Stormburst setup. And once again, I will mention I tried out just about everything. I went with Stormcall, Arctic Breath, Arc, Spark, and none of those really felt any better than Ball Lightning. I'd say Arctic Breath may have cleared roughly the same, maybe a bit worse. Arc cleared just a bit better on smaller packs, worse on larger packs. Overall, I'd say Ball Lightning performed the best in conjunction with Stormburst. Stormburst by itself, even with faster projectiles, just really didn't feel quite good enough as a skill by itself for consistent mapping, especially in the end game. So I'd say that's where I'll leave it off for this character. I may have wanted to try Inquisitor Blade Vortex to respec into it, but I then got quite a bit inspired by another character and wanted to really get into it as soon as possible. So I've ended up benching this and starting that guy pretty much today. So the next thing I wanted to try was either Charge Dash or Dark Pact, and someone did mention this axe, which I did see a couple days ago, and it seemed really strong, but I hadn't actually thought about it in context of a certain build or anything. And when I looked at it again today, I did think I could do some Charge Dash action with it, or maybe even some Cyclone. And the idea is that Namahu Axe, or the Namahu Axe, was a really good Cyclone weapon, and the Raider that I played with it was one of the funnest and strongest characters I've played on a certain budget in recent times, and I figured this guy right here could perform something pretty damn similar. So it's just got a lot of cold damage to start with and a bunch of extra elemental damage when you use a Warcry recently. Recently means 4 seconds, so the Warcry cooldown for Enduring Cry, Abyssal Cry, or the regen cry, I can't remember what it is right now, is 4 seconds, so it should be up pretty much 100% of the time. It'll drop off every now and again, thus effectively giving us a really strong cold damage weapon with a lot of elemental damage. And the idea then is to either go Cyclone or Charge Dash, and currently I've been playing around with Charged Dash, which, if you're unaware of how it works, you basically stand there channeling, charging your dash, and then releasing when it gets to a certain distance. It's based off of movement speed for how fast it will fly forward, and then based off of attack speed for how many attacks you get in between while it's flying forward. So in the end, the idea is to have, for best single target, as slow as possible, to run as slow as possible while having the most attack speed as possible, while for clear speed you definitely want some good movement speed and some good attack speed. So overall I'm going to be trying Charge Dash with this thing, and potentially some Cyclone action if I feel the need to, if Charge Dash doesn't feel quite right at a certain stage. But at this stage, Charge Dash has been clearing very nicely and performing very nicely. And the idea is to also use Ice Bite and then added cold to get a shitload of extra cold damage, a bunch of frenzies to then scale our cold damage as well, elemental damage with attacks, and I haven't really figured out all the links, just going as we go at the moment. And the passive tree is pretty straightforward. It's just, on the right hand side of the tree. It's going to be something you can probably even convert your Frostblade Raiders into if you're unhappy with the build or bored of it at this point, but we'll have to wait and see in the next few days how it fleshes out. The axe is currently, or let's say was, extremely cheap and rather overpowered maybe even for its current standing, so we'll have to wait and see how that goes, but I'll show you just a little bit of the leveling so far. So keep in mind what you're seeing here is going to be on a tabular, so I'm running a 5 link for the skill, not completely optimal, but it is a 5 link nonetheless. A Mega Nords, And that's basically all the damage stuff there is. An Elrion Ring will more or less negate the entire mana cost of Charge Dash. So if you can get -8 mana cost Elrion Ring, then it makes the mana cost really simple. And other than that, nothing too special for gear, but it is obviously a bit of a leveling setup. You can see the single target is fairly insane, and it's been really smooth so far. Just on single target, it is a bit of a weird skill to get used to. And then you can see in the clear here for the aqueducts, the skill is basically made for aqueducts or things like this, and with higher movement speed and attack speed it should only get better and better for clearing, and hopefully it can scale a bit more into the end game. But like I said, if it fizzles out a bit, then maybe we'll try out some Cyclone as well, and it'll be reminiscent of the Namahu Cyclone, I would think, damage wise and playstyle wise, while being on a similar sort of really cheap budget, because these days a Zoph's Blood makes building a Namahu a lot tougher than it used to be, while this doesn't really have any gear setbacks whatsoever. So we'll see how this goes in the next few days. Hope you guys aren't too sad about Stormburst. I still had fun playing it. It's just a shame that it's not as good as I was hoping it would be. But maybe Charge Dash or Cyclone with this new weapon can give us some more fun anyway. So thanks for watching, guys, and as always, I'll see you next time.